This is Next Level Tech, the arcade version. We're playing games, having fun, and talking technology. Next up on deck is Mark from Seagate, here to talk about the world of storage, cloud, all the fun things that you guys do.
Indeed.
All right. Thanks for coming.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
Appreciate you being here.
Of course.
It's time. You ready for some Mario Kart?
I am.
All right, so we're going to pregame it a little bit. We're already in the middle of one, so we're going to pick it up, and I'm going to hit the resume button.
Okay.
But first, let me lob a little question. Okay, so Seagate, storage, cloud, data. Set that aside for a minute. What are you most excited for that's kind of coming in the industry? Like when you guys look out at the outlook for storage and the tech industry, what's got you excited? I'm hitting the resume button.
You hit the resume button right then. I see how that works. Yeah. Great. I would say it's actually, and it's probably the answer that a lot of people are giving. It's AI, because it's going to change how so much is produced, and as well as even help monetize and reutilize old content, right? In many different ways, whether you're talking Gen AI and using it to help generate new content, but as well, even just understanding what you have so that you can reutilize content that's already in your archives.
It's distracting having to monitor.
It is very distracting trying to play this and talk at the same time. I know.
Intentional.
Master plan. I see how we are.
So let's talk about AI for a second, because I think the world's kind of split. I think who is somebody hit me with squidding or something? I can't see what's going on. There we go. Is that you?
I don't know. That wasn't me.
Okay, so AI in general. I mean, most people say AI is sort of their personal assistant or the thing that creates memes for them. Where are you guys seeing AI sort of fall into the storage space? Like, how do you see it affecting the storage industry right now?
Well, right now, I don't think it's affected it as much, because people are still in their large learning models and all that. Whereas, I think where it will be going is once more is done with that. Wait, you're still going in your second? I'm 12th. I don't get it. So people are still doing a lot of the analysis.
Hey, at least you're on the board.
I am on the board.
According to this over here, you're number one. And that might be a loser, but
you're right. I think it's gotta go because I got 1 point.
Oh, bonus.
Yeah. Basically, I think we're still in the stage where the learning engines are working.
Yeah.
Versus where they're going to start spitting out tons of content.
Which is good for the storage industry because more content means more hard drives.
Right, but I think we're a couple of years away from really seeing the explosion of storage resulting from AI.
What about from an understanding of how AI is helping us understand what's on our storage? What are you seeing in the industry right now to help with that? Because I mean, it's sure we can generate content, but what about the existing content?
Well, that's where there are lots of different folks are releasing different tools to do that. As a matter of fact, including Periphery, for example, with their AI tool, looking at essentially being able to access old content that you've had, or content as your. I want to say it's twofold. It's accessing old content you've had and just doing analysis on it using on-prem compute, which is beneficial for this in terms of what they're doing, versus having to use cloud-based compute, which can be very expensive and unpredictable in price. Because that's the big danger in all this, right? It's that people are going to run into the same issue that they ran into when they went cloud first, a couple, with COVID anyway. Is what the bills suddenly look like, and it's still an issue with cloud storage. It's but giving the ability to use on-prem compute to do that, or on-prem GPU to do that, makes it completely, predictable in cost.
Well, so there's a cost savings. There's also a security.
There is.
I mean, so this is one of the things I want to talk about is how are you guys at Seagate, being all things cloud these days, looking at security and data privacy? Because AI, I think that's one of the pieces of AI is everybody says, oh yeah, your data's secure, but these LLMs, do we really know how they're treating other people's data? I mean, everything's about learning from your data.
Right.
So utilizing an on-prem AI is one of the few things that probably is data secure, has it
Yeah.
sort of security first mentality.
No, and that's, I mean, and even we're practicing what we preach with that. At Seagate, we actually are starting to use, we're starting to use basically using Copilot, but we have an on-prem version of it as well for stuff that can't leave the premises, right?
Nice.
And so, agreed, that's exactly what needs to happen is you need to have that secure storage that you own, to
Which one of you keeps
I don't know, it wasn't me, I got hit too.
Dude.
But yeah, but that data privacy and because who knows, even though theoretically when you use Copilot on the web, it's supposed to be secure, but you never know if it really is or not. I mean, you never know. That's why you really have to watch what you're actually uploading if you're using one of the cloud-based, open source or open AI platforms.
And something just smashed me good. All right, so now this may really fall into the same line, but when you look at the industry as a whole right now, what do you think's the most influential tech out there? And I mean, maybe yours and maybe somebody else's, but who's really making big waves in the industry right now?
Well, that I guess depends on in what category you're talking about.
Well, let's just start with storage first.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I see AI being an additive to storage, but I don't think they're really influential to storage.
No, it's going to be more related to the consumption of storage. I mean, that's where it's going to be. That's where it really is going to take or play a role. Sorry, hold on. I got to try to pass you. Damn it.
Hey, you're up from.
I'm up from 12.
Last to first. I mean,
or fourth.
It's coming along.
Yeah. But really, it's in the consumption of storage that AI is going to have the influence. It's all of these things working together, and I think it's in different dimensions. It's really continuing to see the tiering of storage. We have our Mosaic technology, which is the HAMR essentially based for increasing drive density. So when you need essentially, I don't want to say cheap and deep, but when you need a large scale repository that you don't need fast access for, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So you need to look at really what's the workload, and I mean it's kind of everything old is new again, because that's people get really excited about NVMe, and I want everything on NVMe, but then you see the price tag.
Well, yeah, and I think NVMe is really great for people that have massive IOPS or massive bandwidth concerns, right? I need the fastest thing. I'm editing in 16K and soon to be 24K.
Right.
But 90% of the audience doesn't have that problem.
No,
they just have a whole lot of junk sitting in a drawer somewhere that needs to get sorted through and put on.
Well, but the other thing is they have that whole lot of junk sitting in the drawer, and maybe they need a little bit of tier 1.
Yeah.
And that's where the NVMe can come in, but then they need to be looking at what's the best way to store all this other stuff, and especially now with AI, store it in a way that they can really utilize it. And maybe that's object, whether you're talking about owned object or as in like using something like Swarm with on-prem hardware, or whether you're talking about cloud-based, like with Live Cloud or something else, and then even looking at tiers beyond that. I mean, one of the coolest things that I feel like we have that really is separating our cloud offering from others is our new infrequent access offering. So it's essentially designed for those folks who are looking for a content repository that they're not going to be accessing.
A true archive.
A true archive.
I mean, I think some people get mixed up with archive being something that's got to be readily available. No, that's something you put away in the junk drawer and you forget it's there.
Right, and you're going to occasionally. You're looking at it, but you're not accessing it all the time. And so with it, we're basically giving you something. It's still all on disk, so it's still all available to you immediately.
Yeah.
But you have a retention period. So because it's an archive, we don't have retention period on our other stuff, or on our standard Live Cloud offering. But with infrequent access, with having the retention period, it's just basically saying, look, this is designed for stuff you want to just throw in that junk drawer, like you said, and be able to come back to and say, oh yeah, what about that thing I shot, 2 years ago?
Or the story that broke that you need to, you
I
got
need
the
B-roll,
footage for
exactly.
that.
I need that. Yeah.
Which is, I think, a lot of the utilization with RAM and archive is about a thing that hasn't happened yet, but you're going to need that clip someday.
Right.
Is, there's a lot of data mover tools that look at last access or infrequent access. Okay, I'm going to move it over here because nobody's touched it in a while. I think my hope for AI at some point, especially in the current LLMs, is that we can start to tie production systems together with storage systems, where it could start to, okay, we see that this project's in works and we know we're at scene 3, so let's start pulling in scene 3 footage. Let's move, start moving data based on project and, not necessarily manual, right? And I think that's kind of my hope for, the LLM space, is that we start to tie together, more of the business intelligence into the storage utilization, where now we're, the decisions being made on where the file sits, what tiers you were talking about earlier, kind of be made based on what's actually happening, versus what did I last touch? Because you're not always touching that next file, right? In order for the system to know I should move it from tier 3 back to tier 2 or even tier 1. You have to then go in and interact with it in order to get it to move. But if my, operational system could say, well, look, we know where we're at on the edit. We know what scene we're finishing with. It's time to move the next scene, right? Instead of having, and I guess this is going to put somebody out of a job in doing so because that's a human role. But I think that is sort of in my where I see.
Well, as technology's marched along, we've seen that happen in so many different ways. I mean, you no longer need.
That's not funny. Stop squirting the ink all
over. It wasn't me either.
Okay.
Look, I got squirted
you got
too.
It as well. All right, fair enough. I have no clue where I'm going now.
I don't either, but you're still in first, so can't be doing that badly.
This is true. I keep getting weapons. I'm going to keep hurling them.
But anyway, I mean, look at when word processing became a thing. I mean, technology changes jobs, but and makes things more efficient. But yes, it is. I mean, will AI ultimately replace a lot of the assistant editors out there? Maybe, or at least it certainly can cut down on the number of people required. But to make a production or make production at the level that we used to see require armies of people to do, right?
Well, that's what my thought is. I think having dealt with MAMs for so long, it was always funny to me because it was the assistant editors that were typically responsible for the MAMs. And, I'm like, what do you really want to be doing? I really want to be editing, but I can't because I'm spending all my time moving data.
Yeah, and logging footage and all that stuff.
Is that the hope here? Well, apparently I can't go in the lava. Is that the hope that these systems could actually free up the assistant editors to not be assisted or to be editing a real project versus just moving data?
I mean, I think that would be the idea or the hope.
So let's talk about HAMR for a second, because you brought that one up a little while ago.
Yep.
And what I want to, is, would you say that Seagate's like, if you were to look at what's one technology you guys have generated or innovated in the last couple of years, would you think HAMR's it?
It is. It does. I mean, well, and it's not the last couple of years. Seagate's been working on it for well over a decade. I mean, because we've known that that existing technology is only going to get us so much. You're only going to be able to write so much stuff using current technology onto a platter in a drive.
Yeah.
So you need to know essentially how are you going to do that more densely? How are you going to fit more data in the same given amount of space? And that's what HAMR does. Is it enables us literally through lasers, and actually the real magic of it was in the material science, in creating the platters that can actually be be heated by the laser to allow you to write that data more densely, and then not just heat up and expand really fast and then cool down very quickly, so that it's back in its normal size and space essentially. So you can write that data more densely. But that HAMR technology is what's going to take us into another essentially exponential growth phase in drives. I mean, it should get us to we've already proven out at least 50 or 60 terabytes per drive, potentially 100 terabytes per drive.
Incredible. I mean, I think it's interesting because every time everybody says the drive is dead, SSDs are all, and even before that, before SSDs, optical is the way of the future. And it's like all the optical systems dying. Hard drives are still here 30, 40, 50 years later. We still have hard drives, and they keep getting denser. They keep getting, which is good because yes, they're still use a little more energy than other systems, but nobody's touching the density that they can produce and still be active and ready all the time.
Right.
What do you think's missing from the storage space right now? What is needed to really shake up the storage space and kind of usher in the next era?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. I'm looking at. You did well, because the challenge. Software defined has really been. At least it seems like where things are going, but you also see a lot of the software-defined companies struggling. A lot of.
Because there's too many of them. It's time for some acquisition.
Maybe, though I think with that it's harder because it's not like you would have to have code that works, and you see that. You see acquisition. Look at Pixit. Yeah. But and there are times where it's complementary, but otherwise there are potentially times where it's. I guess you have to figure out how the code's going to go together, and how are the pieces going to fit if they're going to be merging together. It's not like you have multiple people making the same thing, like multiple hard drive companies now consolidating, as happened over the last few over decades, until we ended up with 3 now, right? I don't think you'll see the same thing because anyone can code, and there's open source, and there's it's a whole different process.
And there's AI, which can
there's
as well
AI.
and start to solve for problems maybe that we're not seeing yet.
And frankly, and maybe that's the next big thing that'll shake it up is how AI will change. What I could see as being a fascinating use for AI is not just in terms of content analysis, like bringing that stuff into the project, but really looking at imagine an AI tool that could look at all of your data over a period of time, essentially just sit in the background and watch your workflows.
Yeah.
And then say, you're doing this all wrong. You should buy this kind of storage.
Yes.
You should, move this data here,
Truly recommend based on utilization, not on conceptualization.
Correct.
Right? And start to understand, well, look, we see your editors are working from these hours, and because of that, you need 20 more terabytes of tier 1.
Yeah.
Right? Versus,
Well, and I hate to say it, but you could even go beyond that and say, you've got, these editors are working these hours. If you move this data, and you've missed deadlines this many times, if you, instead of using this data here or this on-prem data, you instead go to cloud-based editing and a shared model and do an around the sun model with, have this team in India and this team in Romania, helping editing for you, whatever,
work on a global scale rather than, totally. So amazing. So look, so I think people really need to dig into HAMR is what I'm hearing, because that seems like probably some of the most influential things that you guys have done, in the last couple of, as you said, you've been working on it for a really long time.
Right.
Because that allows the density.
That's in terms of
due to all the new AI tools that are coming along, they're going to create more storage.
Right. Well, and that's in terms of the storage if they're going to own the storage, because then the next thing to look at is, do you own the storage or do you do as a service?
Are you using HAMR in your own cloud?
Yeah. And we will be. And we'll absolutely continue. We eat our own dog food, and we'll continue to.
Are you the only storage manufacturer that exists both as hard drive and cloud and storage array? What other manufacturer is really living in all 3 locations?
Yeah.
And offering a true cloud service, not an OEM cloud service.
Right. As far as I know, yes.
Yeah.
Because at least in terms of other storage manufacturers, in terms of drive manufacturers, no, you've got 3. You've got us, Toshiba, and WD. And as far as I'm aware, Toshiba and WD don't have clouds that they offer to customers. So
you're the only end-to-end.
All
right. I won again. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know you did.
But I didn't come in first place this time, so it's okay.
I know.
But you look at this each time.
Because you were stumping me as we were playing. That was the problem, right?
That's true. That is true.
Yeah, I see. I see how this works. Exactly.
Yeah. This has been another episode of Next Level Tech. Big thanks to Mark for coming and hanging out with us and playing a little Mario Kart where I get to stump him with questions while I run him into walls. So
that's right.
good.
Yeah, thanks, Jay.